Hello guys, and welcome to another discussion video, and today I'm going to be talking about something controversial. Not too controversial though, because it kind of really depends on the person and how they feel about this issue. So basically this is regarding the free update model with Nintendo, or the fix-it-later approach as some people like to call it. And I'm not entirely opposed to this. I mean, for some games, it really absolutely does break the game, and it's why I don't like certain games, like in the series, as much as others. But for some games, I do think it's beneficial, and I do think, like, there's enough content added at launch, and then they do have some other things. So, I mean, I kind of feel in the middle. Like, I don't entirely hate it, but I do think it's better than some other approaches. I mean, I feel like during the Wii U and 3DS era, they were kind of starting to experiment with added content in games through DLC or free updates and stuff like that. Like with New Super Mario Bros. 2, they had the DLC, Mario Golf World Tour, they had the DLC, and then in Mario Maker 1, they had the free updates and everything, so I feel like they were kind of experimenting with that, and then by the end of the Wii U era with Splatoon and Mario Maker 1, they kind of started doing the added content thing. And I feel like Nintendo was so close to going into a path of just like constant DLC being added to games. I mean, like, I know that a lot of aspects of the fix-it-later approach aren't good, and I'll go to some games where it definitely does break the game later. But I feel like it is beneficial for some mostly online games, because I feel like if they're adding like a little content into a game after it launches, if it has enough content in the game already, I do think it's actually beneficial. Because for some games, I feel if they just dump the entire amount of content in an online game at launch, I feel like it will probably die pretty quickly. Like, let's say they add all of the weapons in Splatoon 2 and they don't update it at all or don't support it at all, it would probably die pretty quickly. So, and Nintendo really wouldn't update it that much and fix many of the issues in the game with like online and stuff like that, since the community probably wouldn't be as big. So I do feel like it does have some positive impacts in some areas, but I feel like Nintendo was so close to going into a path of like constant DLC, because I mean it was fine for some games during the 3DS and Wii U era, but I feel like with these games coming out during the Switch era, I feel like it's much better that they're doing a free update model rather than a DLC model, because I have a feeling Nintendo probably would have done the like $5.99 DLC thing for every game if like New Super Mario Bros. 2 DLC was like successful and everything. And I also feel like this is kind of derived from Smash too, since the Smash DLC was really popular in like Smash 4 and everything, and then going into Smash Ultimate. So I feel like it's kind of similar to like the Smash update thing, but free. And since they're just adding characters and stages with Smash and everything with the Fighters Pass, I feel like they're trying to replicate the popularity of that in a lot of games, since Smash is a pretty active online game. So, starting off with some of the games that I actually feel negative about, like the fix-it-later approach, with the free added content and everything, and those games are Mario Tennis Aces, Kirby Star Allies, and ARMS. Obviously, there are some other games that I didn't list here that I feel negative towards, but these are the three main games. Mario Tennis Aces, I feel, is the worst. Kirby Star Allies is not that far behind or ahead. But Mario Tennis Aces, I mean, I still think it's a solid game. The gameplay is really good, and I'd say it has the best gameplay in the series. But it has a lot of problems. Like, with its added content, I feel like was really just... It really should have been at launch. Not necessarily the characters. I mean, like, I really think we should have had, like, half of those added characters at launch, and then have, like, a few other characters added. But they didn't even have a select screen, like a court select screen in the actual game there. So I think that's really weird that they added that after, and it's just really random that they had a cutscene added over a year after the game launched. I think it was over a year, and the audio was just messed up and everything with it, because like Waluigi like randomly says during that cutscene, he's like, he walks funny, like when he's opening a chest or something and doing something completely unrelated. It doesn't make any sense. And this game just really treats updates horribly by adding content that really should have been at launch. And another thing that makes it even worse is that in order to get the characters that were added, you have to play in the tournament during that month for a limited time. So if you didn't play during the tournament, you didn't get that character. So, like, I don't even know what the alternative now. I know they keep doing costumes and stuff like that, but let's say someone bought the game after all of the updates comes out and everything. That means they don't get any access to the added characters. Or at least I don't think they did any other thing to get the characters, so I think it was just the tournaments, which is really weird. And even though it's getting people to play the game, it's like you're still restricting people from getting these characters and everything. So I think it's really weird that they did that. Also, like, another unrelated problem with Mario Tennis Aces, I feel like that game was lacking anyway in content, since the modes were not really that good. I think the regular tennis mode and everything was solid. I felt like that was pretty good. Tournament mode, kind of lackluster. It was basically the same exact thing from the other Mario Tennis games. Then you also had the story mode, which was also lackluster, and there really wasn't much else. But Mario Golf seems to be fixing that issue with content, and I will talk about that later. But next up, we have Kirby Star Allies, which added like the Dream characters, which are legacy characters from the Kirby series, and it added like a few different modes. I forgot what exactly they were. But the game was pretty lacking at launch. It was literally just the main campaign and a couple mini games, and I don't think there was any Dream characters, if not just a couple of them. Like, it really was lacking. And the game itself is pretty bland too. I mean, it's fun, but it's pretty bland for Kirby standards. So, I wouldn't say it's one of my least favorite Kirby games. I mean, it's a pretty mid Kirby game, if I would have to say. Like, I know how people say mid all the time on Twitter and everything. I'd say it's a pretty mid or mediocre game, in my opinion, but man, the content that was added really should have been at launch, with those extra modes and extra characters and stuff like that. Wasn't as bad as Aces, because, like, at least it had like ways of accessing different things, and it didn't have quality of life features that were locked behind. But I mean, it was pretty bad with Kirby Star Allies. And then the third one, which wasn't as bad, but I still kind of feel a little strongly about this one because it's a new franchise, which is ARMS. And if they're adding characters to a completely new franchise, like, it really doesn't make any sense. Because this is, one, it's a brand new franchise. And two, you want to get people to play this game, and you want to have all the content there. So, I mean, it did sell fairly well, but, I mean, like, if it's a brand new game with new characters and a new universe and everything, I really think just all the content at launch should have been the case. Like, they should have, like, I mean, in the sequel, if they were going to add, like, extra characters and stuff like that, that would have been fine. But in the original game, it's just really weird to add new characters and everything. Just imagine Super Mario Bros. And you have to unlock Luigi. Or Luigi's added in, like, a few months later. That's the thing. You don't unlock him, you get him a few months later in an update. That's kind of what this is here. I mean, it doesn't really make any sense for a completely new franchise to have, like, characters after launch. And the next one, I might feel positive about this one. I'm kind of leaning positive about this one because I feel like it's not suffering from the same problems that Mario Tennis Aces had. So it's Mario Golf Super Rush. I already feel like Super Rush has better content than Aces already, and I haven't even played it yet. Like, it has Speed Golf, Battle Golf, the regular mode, motion controls, and then the story mode. And the story mode already looks better because it doesn't really look that bland, and it actually looks like you could have you interact things more, and it's not just a new Super Mario Bros. Style map. It's actually kind of more styled like the Game Boy games, and you could actually increase like different stats like an RPG, which is really interesting. So I feel like the content in this game is already like fairly solid, if not pretty good. And I'll have to play it, and I might be surprised because a lot of this game, I feel like the content is there. I feel like they fixed a lot of the problems from Tennis Aces. It looks like it actually has like all the selection menus and the different options that were lacking from Aces before like the updates and everything. So I have a feeling they're fixing a lot of those problems. And the characters that they're adding in like the stages and everything, I feel like it kind of works for Super Rush, since Super Rush seems like a more online-centric game than Aces. Even though Aces had the tournament mode and everything, Super Rush has 3 modes you can play in online. I mean, 3 completely different modes. In Aces, you just play the normal tennis, and it was just different variations of tennis. Tennis in a tournament, different things like that. But Super Rush seems to have a lot of varied content, like with battle mode, speed golf, and like the regular golf and everything. Those are 3 different modes you can play online, and they're completely different. And I feel like it would be beneficial to get these new different stages and stuff like that that you could play in both like normal golf and speed golf, maybe even some battle golf stages. But I feel like it's kind of beneficial here because like this is going to be a much more like involved online game, and it seems like the content that they're adding is not really required for the base game. I mean, I would have loved if it was in the base game, but it doesn't really seem like it's going to hurt the game too much if they're going to add it after launch. Like, I feel like New Dawn City feels like a pretty solid bonus stage, even though I would have loved if it was in the main game itself. I mean, ironically, it makes me even more excited for the game, even though they're going to add it later. But I feel like there could have been more stages in the game or more courses in the game, but the ones that we already have already look pretty detailed. So yeah, I'm not sure what they're gonna do with that, but I mean, so far I'm mostly positive with Super Rush, and if the added content ends up being too excessive, I would probably still enjoy the game anyway, because I enjoyed the gameplay of golf a lot more than Mario Tennis Aces, so we'll just have to see. And games that I mostly feel positive for, I mean, obviously there's still problems, but I feel more on the positive side with these games. Animal Crossing New Horizons, I mean, even though a lot of people say that there's less content in that game than New Leaf, I think there's kind of some things with that game, since it's more of a customizable game rather than like a core Animal Crossing experience. Obviously that's there, but I feel like the main point of New Horizons was to be a more customizable game, and I feel like you could get as much playtime out of New Horizons as you probably can in New Leaf. And I already have almost 400 hours in New Horizons, and even before like the more substantial updates from last summer, I already had like 150 hours or maybe even 200 hours in the game at that point. So yeah, I still got a lot. I still feel like the main game and everything before it added all the content was still worth $60. I mean, like it still felt like there was a ton of content there, but I just feel like the updates were more of enhancing it, and there wasn't too many major updates. I mean, we did get the swimming one, which was pretty substantial, and I feel like it kind of improved upon the swimming from New Leaf, but that's not really required for a core Animal Crossing experience, especially the more customizable approach of New Horizons. So I feel like the added content was more of a bonus, but was definitely welcomed. In Super Mario Maker 2, I have a feeling it's more of like an added thing. I mean, Mario Maker already felt way better than Mario Maker 1 at launch. It still had a ton of new content and everything, and it still felt fleshed out, but even though the updates were still pretty big for Mario Maker 2, it was beneficial, and it felt more like Minecraft updates, kind of. Like how Minecraft updates add new, like, items and stuff like that. I really wish they supported it longer, if they would have made new things, but it really felt like, kind of like Minecraft, how they added, like, the new stuff in it. And I did actively play Mario Maker like up until late 2020. So, I still like even if those updates didn't exist, I would have still played Mario Maker 2 actively, and they didn't even really need those updates to make that game active. It still had a pretty active community, and it still does. And I still kind of dabble around with it, and I'll probably come back to it later. And Super Mario Odyssey, I know this one really doesn't count, but I feel pretty positive about what they added. They just added a few minor things, like the costumes and the camera filters and Luigi's Balloon World, but I feel like that was a pretty solid way of adding in new content. I mean, it wasn't required. They could have gotten away without doing it. It wasn't really needed at all to make the game better. So, I mean, I'm pretty positive about what they did with Odyssey. That's kind of like the ideal way of adding new content. I feel like it kind of like tied with Mario Maker 2 as like the best way to add content. Like, have most of the content there at launch and then add just a few minor things and then things that would get people excited enough to go back to the game and play it a little more. I feel like that's kind of like the best way of free content updates, and I feel like kind of Minecraft, even though that's not a Nintendo game, I feel like that's kind of a good thing too, what they're doing with that game, with updates. But the final game we have here is Splatoon 2, and that's with its, more of its updates with, like, weapons and different things. I know they did DLC in the game, and DLC is a completely different discussion from this one, because, I mean, DLC is more for single-player games. I know I did mention a couple single-player games in this list, and that's another reason why Kirby Star Allies really didn't need the content updates, because I feel like these content updates are mostly for online games, but Splatoon 2, with the added weapons and the different things in the game, I feel like it was certainly justified, because it's an ongoing game, and you really need to add things to an ongoing game to make it successful. So I feel like it's definitely justified in that game. So anyways, thank you guys for watching this video. How do you feel about my thoughts on the free content updates in Nintendo games, and what are your opinions about it? Overall, I feel pretty neutral about it, and like I'm not entirely opposed to it unless it's like things that really should have been in the base game and not like quality of life updates. That really almost broke the game if they weren't in, like, especially with Mario Tennis Aces and Kirby Star Allies. So anyways, thank you guys for watching this video. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe for more, and make sure to check out my Discord server and Twitter if you want to. Goodbye.